Okay, okay, I'll take it. Um, put in improvements at intersections, and it did that because our neighborhood already has bike lanes, striped bike lanes. And I have to say that the neighbors didn't want that, quite honestly. So we're trying to figure out what safety meant and what you're trying to protect bikers from. You're trying to protect bikers from, I think, getting hit by cars is what I think it is. And we came up with several improvements at intersections that were rejected by Dottie. And again, I think this survey or this question kind of limits the number of things that you put down as of what can get improved. Protected bike lanes certainly do provide safety for bikers, but also removes some of the ability for neighbors to park, and for depending on the type of street, but neighbors parking and getting in and out of driveways. When they put the striped bike lanes in our neighborhood, parking changed so that now people have to walk up to a block and a half from their homes to get to their homes because there's no parking in front. So you have to weigh both ideas and be able to make bikers seem more comfortable and still understand what the homeowners need. The improvements at the intersections, one of the big ones we're talking about is, and it has to do with signage also, but moving across the street, there's walk lights, and we suggest that there be also bike lights. And also the suggestion of the timing of the lights, giving the bike a 20-second or so a head start before the green lights for traffic were turned on for cars. So those are some ideas, but I just thought the improvement in the intersection provides the most, for me, the best and easiest safety improvements.
Thanks. Fritz, what did you want to say?
All right, thank you, Cortland. I just want to say, first off, bikelists in the area are homeowners. We have our needs, and I think, frankly, it's a huge safety concern with everything that's been going on. I live on Holly Street, which is a very busy street. It's the only street in the neighborhood planning area that runs north to south between Colorado and Monaco. And so it's used as sort of a quasi-arterial. I have a great front row view of it. Sometimes I need to bike up and down that street. Do not feel safe. So I got to disagree with the characterization of protected bike lanes as an unattainable gold standard. I think, it's actually pretty attainable and pretty cheap these days. Stick some flex posts, and even that's an improvement over just a striped bike lane. I would say it's very important to get those bike lanes, and not necessarily on smaller neighborhood streets like Virginia. I'm not sure how well that was handled, but I'd love to see them on Holly. I'd love to see them on any sort of higher traffic street. As a previous resident was saying, we have a lot of traffic. The streets are built very wide. The sidewalks are generally very narrow. So there's a huge imbalance of street space here as far as the split between cars, bikes, and pedestrians goes. Because the streets are built so wide, they're very conducive to speeding. And so I think bicyclists' main concern is basically staying alive and getting there. And I bike with my 2 children, 5 and 5 months old, and would really just like to get where we're going alive at the end of the trip.
Thank you. And let's do one more comment on this one before we move on. Scott.
Yeah, I just have kind of a more specific comment to Washington Virginia Vale, specifically streets like Holly and Forest that go up the hill. There's a huge speed differential between cyclists going up that hill and cars going up the hill. So those are places where having that dedicated space for bikes would be extra important.
Okay, great. All right, Harvey, did you have another one before we move on to the next?
I just want to respond to Fritz really quick.
Okay.
I was only talking about what I know about, which is that Virginia corridor, which from Monaco to Quebec. So I know there are parts of the neighborhood could use more structure, but they gave us that area and it just never made sense.
Sure, I get you. I don't think that was well handled in general. Could have had a
Thanks.
better outcome either way.
Thanks, Fritz.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this one's about corridors, specifically Evans. We have a series of questions about some of the major streets in the area. So this is the first one. Which type of infrastructure improvements should be prioritized along Evans? Rank the following: vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, transit, or other.
Okay. What you want? What you want?
Just give it a little bit more time. The answers are still shifting around. Okay, so far, pedestrian first, transit second, vehicles third, bikes now tied for third. And other, maybe while they're coming in, whoever put in other, it might be useful to share up front what you had, because that might influence what some others are thinking. So yeah, what were you thinking with anyone who answered other?
I answered other. Part of why I selected other was thinking about just some of the quality of life infrastructure on Evans that makes it so unpleasant. So full disclosure, I'm part of the steering committee for this plan. And one thing we've talked a lot about is just how Evans doesn't feel very inviting. And part of that is those overhead power lines. And it just feels very, and also in terms of streetscape. So I think those are things that could be, I would put in that other category.
Gotcha. So thinking about like the street design itself, apart from what modes of travel it's accommodating, is power lines and street trees and those types of things. Gotcha. Okay, and the most popular choice was pedestrian and transit, both above vehicles. So would anybody like to share on the most popular answers?
Sure.
What was it? Yeah, please go ahead.
This one was this one was tough to answer because I look at those things and I'm like, probably all of them could use a lot of help. I put vehicle first just because anytime basically I try to avoid it, just like I-25, basically. I mean, between the very narrow lanes, just the terrible condition of the roads and potholes and everything else, it's just pretty terrible. And not to mention there's like a lot of crashes and things like that go on. So I put vehicles first, and then I put pedestrian second. So same thing with pedestrian stuff along Evans. It's there's just like a lot of people that you don't really know what their intentions are, and you know that it could be kind of like a rough area walking around there. So I think most people probably tend to avoid it altogether. For transit, I put that third, I believe. And for transit, I know they had that 25 in Colorado station, and actually not that long ago when I was parked at the park and ride there, like they vandalized a bunch of cars. Like someone just went and bashed in all of the windows of their cars, including mine. And like, there just wasn't much, like the cops didn't really care. They're just like, fill out a form online. They're just kind of like, it is what it is. So it seemed like most people, including the public servants, are just kind of like resigned to the fact that, you know, Evans is kind of rough and you kind of get what you get. And so that was kind of disheartening, honestly. And then kind of same with bicycling along Evans. I'm like, I would just avoid it myself unless they have some sort of drastic improvement. It would have to include something like protected bike lanes along Evans, especially since we have Terry Creek, you know, trail right there. So.
Any other thoughts on this one? We'll have the same question for some more streets coming up. Anyone else want to chime in on Evans? Okay, it'll be interesting to see if the answers here differ that much from one corridor to another. So the next one's Colorado Boulevard. Same question though. What type of infrastructure improvements should be prioritized on Colorado? Vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles, transit, other. So we are so far seeing a difference here in how some of it's ranking out. Transit's number one. Pedestrian second, then bicycles, vehicles, and other. While we're waiting for everybody to chime in, I'll just ask, is other, was that you again, Scott, with a similar comment about the, okay, so more like streetscape elements and those types of things. Okay, well, it looks like transit's coming on top on this one. Anybody want to talk about that? Or, you know, any of the others as well?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
I have to drive Colorado Boulevard rather frequently. And that number 40 bus frequently causes backups, both at intersections and in general along the road. I'm not sure you could do anything about it because the 40 is a rather popular bus. But I know when I hit Evans and Colorado Boulevard, speaking of the last question, that one I'm cautious about crossing because the left turners and such on Colorado Boulevard, I find rather puzzling sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, so it's that the transit needs some improvements because it's kind of hard to use, right? Whereas the street already is accommodating vehicles. Is that sort of accurate to say?
It's just that one bus. It makes frequent stops and cars back up behind it, including backing up into the previous intersection. So cross traffic gets caught, waiting for people to figure out they can go around the bus.
Gotcha. Okay. Ari, did you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I would just say I think Colorado Boulevard is a great opportunity to improve bus service. As the previous guest just said, it's a very popular bus line and there's a lot of commercial activity along it. People are constantly driving on it. The traffic is crazy there. So maybe if we could encourage, you know, a little more frequent service with RTD, then more people would take the bus, but having, you know, a little more space for both vehicles and buses might be beneficial. Just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next street. Did it say Colorado again? I think there's a typo in this one. It's a repeat. It says Colorado. It's supposed to say Leedsdale. So I didn't notice that until now, but it's supposed to be what infrastructure improvements should be prioritized on Leedsdale and then rank them. So let's pretend that's what it says. Don't answer for Colorado Boulevard again.
Yeah, I'm concerned about Holly and Leedsdale with that new retirement home there. I think that's going to become an ice skating rink during the winter, both for pedestrians and cars.
Okay. And did you choose the pedestrians as being the top priority, Cindy?
Yeah, because I think the people trying to walk along Leedsdale on that southern side are going to have a lot of fun, even in the spring when we get a lot of water. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of splashing and such. The buses seem to be okay along Leedsdale. I don't know of anyone really riding bicycles along Leedsdale, but I think the pedestrians are the ones who are going to have trouble at Leedsdale and Holly.
Okay.
Particularly, I know I've had trouble trying to walk up the hill there sometimes.
All right, Fritz, what did you want to add?
Thanks. Yeah, I I live right at Holly and Leedsdale, so I it's again something that's right in front of me every day. I personally rank transit highest. Same as with Colorado Boulevard. I want to see BRT happen sometime in my lifetime. Secondly, I put bicycle. I would really like to see a multi-use path along Leedsdale, type that was laid out in the Go Spear Leedsdale plan. I think that would be a huge improvement. That the streetscape along Leedsdale is really dire. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but we got to kind of capture it now before the development that's coming in closes that kind of window. So yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. I understand its difficulties because it's a CDOT road, but yeah.
Okay, Mark. Oh, and then we'll get Fran.
Well, my concern very much is a lot of that you can see even today on Leedsdale, where from Holly going west, that is all in ice today because of the shadow that's been there. We've all been used to that part of Leedsdale being in the sun, because when the old dairy was there and when it was torn down, it was now a very big issue. I think the issue, I also voted for pedestrian because I think that the cars go way too fast along Leedsdale. I would be very serious not wanting to walk on Leedsdale, even though there is the pedestrian walkway is kind of not right next to Leedsdale, but close enough that you can get the wind when trucks go by. They can literally pick you up and move you. So the issue is either the speed to control the pedestrians, or as somebody said earlier about a path for bikes. But I have to tell you, the bike paths throughout Denver have cut down the pedestrian traffic. If the pedestrians have the access to the walkway, we have so many homeless people that are going up and back to and from the Goodwill there, that it is a very, very heavy access. And at Leedsdale and Forest, That bus stop is one of the busier bus stops in front of Inga's, is constantly being picked up there. So the bus always stops there. But my concern about bicycles, that bicycle path has to be out of the streetscape. It has to be on the grassy area or a combination of a bike and walkway.
Hey, Fran, what did you want to say?
Yeah, the pollution on Leetsdale is the highest, much higher than on Alameda, because we're kind of in a valley by comparison, and it locks it in. And I don't know if there's space, but some kind of landscaping that would buffer that and be a carbon dioxide sink, at least, you know, for some of the pollution, and also a visual, you know, trees would be ideal, but I don't know that there's enough, how much, you know, room there is for all of that and the cost. But the way that Glendale was able to landscape along Cherry Creek Drive North is beautiful. I don't know if something like that could be done along Leetsdale.
Okay, it might be a specific idea we could look into in a little more detail. And that may be what the other is again, streetscape. Scott, yep, okay. All right. Okay, we have one more corridor question. This one, same question, but for Quebec. Looks like transit came out first on this one, followed by pedestrians and bicycles. All right, anybody want to share why you chose what you did for Quebec, or maybe why you thought of it differently from some of the other corridors that we've been asking about? Is there anything unique about Quebec that led to these choices? Mark?
The issue from Leetsdale to Alameda was greatly enhanced when they put the sidewalk there. The concern is, and it's been an issue all the time, who maintains that sidewalk? Because those homes that back up to Fairmont Cemetery, they don't have gates there. So the concern through the neighborhood was always who shovels the walk there. And that being on the west side of the street is always in snow. Now I believe that the city is doing something along that, but there is no walk path on the east side of Quebec from Leetsdale to Alameda. And that is always a pinch point. If you have two lanes going northbound on Quebec, you have at least two lanes going east from Leetsdale up, and they merge. Some of the people are constantly fighting to get in there. So some type of pinch point relief is necessary. And that goes without saying the issue from, what is it, about 6th Avenue all the way to, what is it, 20th or something like that. The just terrible, terrible pinch points there.
Other thoughts on Quebec?
Can I just jump in and just say that there are, the city is constructing sidewalks along Quebec, I believe between 11th and 28th. That's happening this year. There were just two community meetings about it over the course of the last week. So those are going in I think at the end of this year.
Hopeful.
It's a little higher up, I think, than kind of what we're talking about here, but it does kind of attach to that issue and that concern at Alameda.
Fritz.
Hi there. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much air. I have a specific concern about Quebec, and I think it was one thing that wasn't well addressed by the Virginia Bike Lane, which is a connection through Fairmont Cemetery to the Highline Canal Trail. You know, from where we live, I would go straight down Virginia to go through Fairmont to the Highline, but that stretch of riding on Quebec there for a couple blocks is pretty hairy considering how fast the traffic goes. I think on an arterial like that, it's kind of a shame. It's really a shame for the city that we don't have adequate pedestrian and bike facilities on there.
Harvey?
I'm not going to go into every piece of history for the Quebec corridor, but I put transit as number one because on Quebec, between Leetsdale and Alameda, there are no stops. So that's a real problem. So people don't want to take it, especially in Winston Down neighborhood where we could be taking a bus north. There just aren't any stops there. And there are a couple more stops going in the southerly direction. That's why I put transit to improve that. The sidewalk that was put in along Quebec that was mentioned, the city put it in at a specific width to only accommodate pedestrians between, I think the sidewalk starts at about a little further south, the next position, and goes all the way up to Alameda. So that's why that sidewalk is the width that it is. And as far as the Fairmont access, that's difficult, Fairmont being a private property. And they did not want to have a crosswalk or a light at the entrance to the cemetery. So being a, like I said, private, that's they have that say on that.
Okay, well, looking at the overall time, I think we have about 25 minutes left. So we're going to switch gears from mobility to quality of life, or what we term quality of life infrastructure. It's a collection of things. And I'll just quickly summarize what we've heard on quality of life, and then we'll have a series of questions on that as well. So what we've heard, Near Southeast has many great parks, but the current features and amenities in them may not meet all of the needs of the community, and some residents of Near Southeast don't find it easy to get to them. Landscaping can be improved in some areas and become more resilient. So what we're asking with the following questions is, we would like to understand what new amenities and parks would be most valuable, how we can improve access to the existing parks, where landscaping should be improved, and priorities for resiliency. All right, so we'll have a question on each of those main topics. So first one, starting with parks. Which potential amenities would you most like to see in a park near you? Select your top 3. So answers may differ based on parks that people happen to have near them. But what are your top 3?
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting things selected.
We can give you a little more time if you need it, Cindy.
I was trying for dog park, but I can't get it selected.
Okay, well, we are taking notes too, so we'll make note of that there's a vote for dog park that's not showing up. And Councilwoman Sawyer, you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment about this one?
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the things that I just want to make sure gets noted in this section is that the residents of Winston Downs have been asking for a park at all for quite some time. So they are one of the few neighborhoods in the area that is not within the radius that is a 10-minute walk to a park. And I just want to flag that and make sure that it's noted for future planning. The available land is an issue. And so I know Parks and Rec has looked into it and is considering, options in the future. But at the end of the day, Winston Downs remains a neighborhood that does not have a 10-minute walkable park in the area. So I just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Right, so the top vote getter with 19% was playgrounds. And then we were tied for second with, well, it's still shifting a little. Playgrounds is increasing its lead, 23% now. And then in second place, picnic tables and shelters and running or walking trails tied for second. And then we've got right now a 4-way tie for third with sports courts. So likely basketball and tennis courts, other types of hardcourt sports, exercise equipment, natural landscaping, and green infrastructure. And it's not showing up, but we've noted there's a vote for dog park too. Yeah, Ari, what would you like to say?
I voted for Parks and Trails. I live by Garland Park, and it's a beautiful park. And obviously it has trails and running and walking trails. And I just wanted to say, I feel like they could be larger so that more people could use them. It's hard for cyclists to share them with pedestrians, and it's probably not fair that pedestrians are having to really share that so much. So just wanted to make note of that real quick. And then also, if there could be lids on the trash cans, and then I'll stop complaining. But thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks. Councilwoman Sawyer, did you have another comment, or is your hand
Yeah,
still
I
up?
did.
Okay.
Thank you. I just the comment about Garland Park reminded me that I also wanted to flag a second issue that we have in Virginia Vale, in particular along the Greenway north of Garland Park. And that is that people use that area for dumping all the time. Parks and Rec has put up some no dumping signs. It's not helping. There are areas up there where people are leaving mattresses, old furniture, just kind of sitting there. And, we have Dottie come through and pick them up, and we're very appreciative of that. But it is a problem because it's kind of like unused open space along that greenway, that people dump their stuff there all the time. And I just want to make sure that that's flagged as an issue as well, for consideration in the plan. Thanks.
And then Fran, did I see you actually raise a hand? Yeah.
Bathrooms in the parks. It's so difficult to walk there. And in the winter, when they're locked or when there's no porta potty available or whatnot, somehow, some way of having a safe and well-maintained bathroom in each
Okay.
park.
Yeah, thank you. Mark?
Councilwoman, if you go back many, many years, some old timers will remember when that was a dump. At the end of Holly and at the end of Monaco, that was a dump right along there. So some things are hard to change, unfortunately.
Yep,
And-
I hear you.
And the other question would be, is that beautification process that's along further to the south with the High Line and all that type of stuff, is that Cherry Creek coming in that direction anytime soon to clear out all those poplar trees that are so overgrown?
That's a question for Councilman Cashman, because District 5 ends at Tennessee. So I'm sorry that I can't answer that one for you. I know that Parks and Rec has a capital improvement plan for that area, but I apologize, I can't answer that one. That's a Councilman Cashman question. That's District 6.
Can you repeat the question for me?
the question is the beautification process that Arapahoe County is doing basically off of Cherry Creek Drive from Quebec going to, let's see, where is it? Iliff. They have cleared out a lot of the old dead trees. They have made a meandering bike path, pedestrian walkway and everything like that, but it seems like it's stopping at Quebec. And the question is, can it go further into the Denver area? Because I know it's a multinational or multi-organizational part between the High Line, the city of Denver, County of Arapahoe, and Parks and Rec, I believe. So is there any process of that going forth because of the heavy overgrown of poplar trees and the dead trees? And it just is, it's hard to walk along there and feel safe.
Yeah, that's a great question. Spectacular improvements along Cherry Creek in that stretch. It's not planned at the current time to extend it farther west, but there's been increasing voices raised looking for that to happen. So it's on the radar, but not in a form plan at this point.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So I don't want us to run out of time before we get to all the questions, but I did want to ask so whoever answered other, if you wanted to share what you had in mind.
That was me with the bathrooms.
Oh, that was the bathrooms. Okay, we already covered that one. All right, well, let's move on to the next question then. Okay, this one's about park access. What makes it harder for you to go out to a park? Select all that apply. Okay, so the trend I'm seeing so far is that it's difficult to walk, bike, or take transit to a park, but no one said that it's difficult to drive to one, which may be telling. Looks like we have a few responses on other. Maybe we should start there. What were the other difficulties in accessing parks?
I know for me, for the other, so I live kind of near Place Bridge Academy. So Cook Park is where we would normally, bike or walk to. So it's pretty close, but to get there, you have to get on that, you have to walk across that bridge, across the Cherry Creek. And a lot of times, there's a lot of people hanging out there that, might have a lot of drug paraphernalia or just, be homeless people. So just safety, I think, is an issue getting there for a lot of them.
Safety, okay, that makes sense. Was there someone else who chose other? It's got 13%, so there must have been at least a couple people.
Yeah, I chose other as well. I would kind of echo what the last respondent said, that it's sometimes the parks just don't feel activated. I guess I could have selected feels unwelcoming. And then in the summer, I would say, sometimes the sprinklers are like going right over the path. And so it's not very fun to get like a face full of recycled water when you're biking or walking or anything. So it's just kind of gross. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and how about anyone else who wanted to share? It looks like in the final result, difficult to walk there turned out to be number one. Otherwise, we could move on to the next question. Oh yeah, go ahead, Fritz.
All right, I'll keep it quick. Yeah, typically we go to Crestmore Park as our main park, just because it's the closest one. No, it's outside of the area, but we walk there or bike there, and our choices are Holly Street
for getting across Alameda, our choices are go on Holly Street, which has a terrible and very dangerous feeling sidewalk, or go down to Kearney, or typically Kearney, and then try to hustle across Alameda when there's no traffic. It just does not feel safe.
Okay, thanks. All right. Councilwoman Sawyer?
Just an update in response to Fritz on that. I hope that you have been participating in the Kearney Street bike lane process, because there will be a safer crossing coming in Alameda when that bike lane is installed. Just so you know, it's on the city's radar.
That's great news. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know that it won't be a stop light. I don't know exactly what the treatment will be. Dottie's determining that now, but just wanted to let you know that that's on their radar, and they're currently handling it.
Okay, all right. Scott, you had your hand up briefly. Did you want to share anything? No, you're good? Okay.
I was clapping for the Kearney Street improvements.
Oh, gotcha, sorry.
Yes, no.
It was a clap, okay. Two questions left. So this one's about landscaping. Where is it most important to add or improve landscaping in near Southeast? Select your top 3. Along major streets, that was a theme of what we heard in the first half of the discussion for sure, the need to improve landscaping and other amenities along streets. Okay, and so far that's the highest vote getter, with trails in second. Okay, well, we have talked a bit about the need for landscaping along major streets. Maybe we should jump to the second highest one here. Unless there's something new that someone wants to share about that one, about the streetscaping, but trails, that's an interesting one. Is there, who chose trails, and why were you thinking they needed more landscaping?
So I chose trails, and I was thinking specifically of the trail that goes through the empty space that we were talking about earlier. I think landscaping there would really help improve that experience.
Okay. And I just got a notice, I don't know if you can see it, but they're asking us to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. Anyone else have a quick thought on this one? Otherwise, we'll put up the last question to make sure that we get to it. Okay. The last one's about resilience. So which potential benefits from improved landscaping and green infrastructure are the most important? And you get to select your top 3 on this one. Flooding, water use, pollinator habitats, reduced heating, air quality, and appearance. Air quality is pulling ahead with reductions in water use second, now tied for first. Nobody chose flooding or other on this particular one. Is flooding not much of an issue, or just not the most important issue? Or if nobody has a comment on that, let's go with the top one, reducing water use and improving air quality.
I don't know.
Councilwoman Sawyer, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't respond because I want to make sure that I'm not messing up the responses, but I did want to let you know that we requested from Parks and Rec that they consider reclaiming that grassy area along the Garland Park Greenway, and which would return it and restore it to its natural landscaping instead of the grass that's there that takes up a lot of water. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have half a minute if anybody wanted to share their thinking on this last question.
Well, I was interested in the reduced heating. Walking in the park sometimes can be an exercise in sweating during the summer. So if we could change maybe the paving or something.
All right, thanks, Cindy. And thank you everyone for the discussion tonight. It was nice speaking with you.
To have a brief recap, so if I could have each of the facilitators just give us the most important thing your group discussed really quickly, and then we can all or let you all get out of here on time. For those of you who are interested in the chance to win a gift card to Target or a local restaurant, I'll put this link in the chat. You can go to enter your email address. We'll have a drawing here before too long and select some winners from that. But with that, like I said, why don't we have folks, let's start with Cortland, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I'd say an overall theme from our transportation discussion was that pedestrian, transit, and bike facilities tended to rank the highest when we asked about what improvements are needed. And they did, the top response did vary by corridor. And so there were some corridors where transit was a priority and others where pedestrian or bike facilities were a priority. But vehicles tended not to rank very high in most of the discussion because I guess the streets already do a pretty good job of accommodating vehicles for the most part, the major corridors.
Great, thanks, Cortland. Eric, you want to go?
Sure, I was with Indian Creek and we had a pretty vigorous discussion about Evans being a major east-west corridor and being able to needing to be able to maintain throughput in getting vehicles east and west, but thinking about where and how we could make it a little more humane and a little more pedestrian based in some key places. The Old Rainbow Music Hall was one that was mentioned of what it used to be, and maybe we could find a way to do a little bit more of that. And then of course, because we were Indian Creek, we talked a lot about Quebec and sort of the role of Quebec and how the different sections of Quebec are maintained and look and feel very differently. And there's a need and a desire to make that more of a high character street.
Great, thanks, Eric. Libby, you want to go?
Yeah, so I was in University Hills North, and so we also discussed a lot about Evans and then Colorado Boulevard. And it really seemed like currently the residents feel like it's hard to get out of the neighborhood unless you're in a vehicle. And so finding other modes of transportation, so especially pedestrians or bikes along Evans was prioritized. And then for the parks, since University Hills North currently doesn't have a park, but they are getting one, we kind of talked about what they'd like to see, and they'd really like a park that is for the neighborhood and that they can walk to, because currently there's no parks that are really walkable from this part of the city.
Thanks, Libby. Anthony, you want to go?
Yeah, a couple of really interesting pieces. Just like we were saying, the people-focused corridors was a big discussion, but also I was in the Goldsmith neighborhood. Sorry, just jumping right in. the other really interesting piece, we talked a lot about Yale as part of the Goldsmith neighborhood. You know, one of the corridors that wasn't mentioned in those questions, but Yale is a very important corridor for Goldsmith. And I also want to add in on the park side of thing, when we were talking about the voting of the elements on parks, our voting was might have been a little different than most, just because the vicinity to Bible Park and the amount of amenities that are available in Bible Park.
Great, thanks, Anthony. And Jason.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. So I came from the Virginia Village Room, and we had a small group, but a pretty lively discussion, most of which has already been covered. We talked a lot about kind of the transportation piece, and really kind of with a focus on improving pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, especially along the lines of safety. So accessing parks and resources and improving intersections to get to some of those places. And then switching gears to quality of life. We talked a lot about, adding natural landscaping, improving wildlife habitats and native species to kind of help with some of the water quality issues and stormwater runoff, and to really kind of help beautify the parks in your southeast.
Great, thank you, Jason. And thank you, everyone. That's it for tonight. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your thoughts. As I mentioned, there are surveys up on the website, denvergov.org/near-southeast-plan. Would love it if you take those. Please tell your friends, tell your neighbors about the plan. If you have questions or comments, there's also a comment form on that website. You can submit those to us. We hope you will all continue to participate in the rest of the plan. We've still got over a year to go here, so we hope you'll stay involved. And we're ending just about right on time here. So thank you, everyone, again. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening. Have a good weekend. Looks like the weather will be getting better in the next couple of days, so we all have that to look forward to. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.